Hey everybody, this is Flavio Romeo, and on this episode of the Towncast, we had the opportunity to talk to John Gray. He's a local resident who climbed Mount Everest and shares his story about how he trained to get there, the other mountains he climbed before he got to climb Mount Everest. This is part one, so stay tuned. Next week, we'll play part two. All right, enjoy the episode, everybody. All right, everybody, so here we are. We're at the GRAC, the Glen Rock Athletic Club, right in Glen Rock, New Jersey. And, you know, it's such a great place. It's a membership place. Shuffleboard, they have a great bar. They have a great catering hall upstairs. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk to John Gray. John, thank you so much for coming.
Sure,
so
no problem.
I first learned about John Gray because, as you know, we had Adam Fotz on several episodes as he was preparing and then ultimately climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. And as it happens, I saw that John was doing like a Q&A slide presentation because he climbed Mount Everest. So, which is, I guess that's like the granddaddy, right? Everybody always talks about Mount Everest.
The Big E.
The Big E. So tell me, like growing up, did you grow up in the area?
I grew up in Ridgewood.
Okay.
And I left Ridgewood after college. 93, I went out to California.
Okay. And when did you first like get the bite, you know, the urge to climb tall structures?
Well, growing up around here, I went skiing a lot, and I was,
you like the outdoors.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you have to like the outdoors.
Yeah. On snow days, I'd be out. I'd shovel my parents' place, and then I'd go out and I'd be out all day till dark.
Yeah.
And after a while, you just get used to the cold. And so then when I went out to California, going to ski in Tahoe was like heaven.
Yeah.
Way better
than
than
powder.
Yeah.
There's no ice. There's no slush. Yeah. I hear that from everybody I know that skis.
Yeah. So I never really knew that much about climbing. Just what most people would see on a poster or a book or something, but it never really registered,
You never said, I want to climb that.
Yeah.
When did that finally kick in?
Actually, on a trip to California with a friend to visit the San Francisco area, we drove through Yosemite at one point.
Okay.
And I was kind of just climbing things as a kid, climbing up on roofs and stuff. But
climbing up on roofs, we all do that.
And we were driving through Yosemite, and me and this friend were just looking up at this granite hill, and like, hey, let's pull over and try to scramble up that. We had I had Chuck Taylor high tops,
right.
No socks, no water, and we got pretty high, and we got into this crack system that we really shouldn't have been up there, and so we just went down.
Did you get to the point where what are we doing? Let's go back.
Went too high, and then you can't get down.
Yeah.
So I was always kind of just the basic. I wonder what it would be like to try to get up there, and then what it would look like when you're up there.
Yeah. Yeah, because that to me must be the most amazing things. I mean, I saw the pictures that Adam posted, and we shared them with everybody. The view from being at the top of any of those mountains, because even though some of them are a lot smaller than others, they're still the largest in that continent.
Yeah.
So you're still seeing everything. You're still at the highest point.
Yeah.
On that continent.
Yeah, and it gives you a perspective. You can see the town where you just drove through, and you can, even on a 6,000 feet or 8,000 feet.
So when did you finally say, let's try one of these?
So I was in college. I was on the rowing team, and then
which is a foundation for mountain climbing.
Yeah. Well, it's one of these sports that's, you know, if you like punishment,
that's it.
that's your sport.
Were you a crew?
Yeah, crew. Then after college, then I was getting into cycling, and that's kind of another. You know, I was doing it with people who were really into it, and you know, climbing up big mountains on your bike. And,
yeah. See, you have the body of a rower and a cyclist. I have the body of someone who plays darts.
Yeah. That's where he hangs out at the Grack.
Exactly. Nothing against anybody that hangs out at the Grack, but yeah.
So then, I was at this mountain bike. I was doing mountain biking and road riding and stuff. So I show up to this one ride. It was every Wednesday. People just meet up in this parking lot, and you can just roll in. And
that's cool.
Sometimes
I just ride
you
with
don't
the
even
group.
know everybody, but yeah. And we roll out to. It's down in Los Gatos.
Does that get competitive when you're, or is everybody just riding?
No, just ride.
Yeah.
There were some areas where it was very rare that you could make it up without coming off the bike.
Yeah.
So we were always challenging each other. But so this one friend of mine rolls in. I didn't really know him at the time. He rolls in late, and he said, "Hey, sorry I'm late. I was at REI buying crampons."
What's crampon?
That's what I said. And I had this, you know, it's like you go back and I don't remember what I didn't know. I don't know what I knew or didn't know. And I'm like, crampons. I kind of had this vague notion of what that was. It was like rowing before I rowed. You know, I didn't know if it was a rowboat or what.
Right.
But so then after the ride, we go to get some burritos, and he's like, "Yeah, so I'm preparing for an expedition to Mount Shasta." You know,
And Mount Shasta is that in California?
it's in Northern California.
Okay.
It's a 14er. It's a 14,000 foot peak.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah. There's a few in California and Oregon, Mount Rainier in Washington.
Yeah.
Colorado has a ton of 14s, like 52 or something.
52, 14,000, really.
And some are like Shasta, Rainier. They're usually snow covered year round. So you do it kind of in spring or early summer.
Yeah.
And
That was your first one.
yeah, so afterward I just kind of took in what he was saying, and then later went home and emailed him, and begged for him to take me on his trip. You know?
Oh, nice. Okay.
And it turns
so
out
you got it's like, okay, let me see if I can do this.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it turns out it was just him and like this one other guy. So it wasn't really an expedition, and it wasn't very exclusive.
So there were no guides. It was just you three.
Yeah. So
How long did it take you to summit?
it was a 3-day thing.
Okay.
Usually you go up from the parking lot on. We did the Avalanche Gulch route, which is like the normal route that most people do. And you go up halfway to 10,000 feet, make camp, and then in the morning, early, go up to the summit, and then come back down.
Okay. So it's 2 to the top and 1 down? Or it took you 2 days
then
to
once you get to the summit, then you come back down, break camp, come all the way out. On our summit, so this was like the first introduction to the alpine stuff. So it's like getting up at like 1, try to leave at like 2:30, maybe 3, because you want to get up and then back down before like the heat of the day and things start melting. And
Was there ever was there threats of avalanche? I mean, was it that kind of snow? Or?
well, it's volcanic.
Okay.
A lot of those mountains, they call it the Ring of Fire. There's Shasta, Rainier, Mount Hood. They're all volcanoes. So the stuff under the snow is all loose. So So as it starts to melt out, especially later in the year,
Things slide.
yeah, well, you have like, you know, softball-sized chunks of rock that start falling and they get some speed. And
Yeah.
I've seen them like whiz past somebody's head. So that's why you want to kind of get up in the early part of the day where it's still cold, things are still frozen.
Yeah.
We got up to go to the summit, and we got maybe, you know, halfway towards this one landmark called the Red Banks, and it was kind of white out. It was snowing a little bit, and Jim and the other guy were like, we should turn around. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we turned around, went back to camp, and that worked out because we hung out. So we're hanging out at 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
So you're acclimatizing a little bit more because we're coming from the Bay Area, which is sea level.
Yeah.
And it cleared up within a couple hours, but by that point it's too late to go back up.
So you had to just hang out.
So we're just like cooking food, having breakfast, chilling out, and then we're noticing that Jim had picked this day, this weekend, because there was going to be a full moon. It'd be easier to see, you know, the early morning hours.
Right.
But it was also Memorial Day,
Oh.
so I counted like 50 tents up at this,
no,
at this
really?
camp area, and there was all sorts of people. I mean, we were no different because I was like pulling the tags off some of my gear in the parking lot. Yeah. And we see the guy, there's a ranger who goes up there and just parks himself up there. And he was.
Now, would he say to people, listen, you're not prepared, or would he give you advice or
Well,
warnings?
they were like asking him questions
Oh,
about
okay.
stuff, and he was giving some advice. And I remember he was holding up an ice axe to this group. And he said, "This is the pick, this is the spike, this is the axe." He's going through the anatomy of an ice axe, you know, when you're halfway up the mountain.
Which you would think that people at that point, being halfway up the mountain, should know this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this is back when Jim had a VHS tape of.
There was no Google. There was no
Yeah.
YouTube.
We got together. We passed around a book. There's a book by I think Steve Lewis, who at that point had climbed Shasta like 50 times or 100
Wow.
times or something. So he wrote this book. It's kind of a short book, like everything you need to know to do the avalanche gold trail.
Oh, that's right.
And
I forgot to send me a message.
we all read it, passed it around. We watched our VHS tape. It was the Lowe brothers, Alex Lowe, and they're legendary like climbers from way back, and they were doing like ice climbing technique and ice axe, and you know, just so we're kind of immersing ourselves. This is like our first real, you know.
Yeah.
I hadn't even really been backpacking that much, or you know,
So
I
you
was
went
in the
from
Boy
like
Scouts,
0 to 14,000 feet.
but- Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Boy Scouts was good, you know, but the gear and a lot of the stuff is just so different.
Yeah.
You know, all these years later.
So after Shasta, when you came back down, did you like get the
Well,
urge?
Again, we went to get burritos. Mexican. There's a lot of cyclists and climbers. It's just like climb burritos.
Burritos.
Cycle burritos.
Burritos, right.
We found a little Mexican place in town and got a pitcher of beer, and you know, the morning you go up to the summit, so now we're more acclimatized than everybody else, so we're kind of cruising up the mountain. But then you come back down, you rest for a minute, you break camp, and you come all the way down. So that summit day is a long day. It's
Yeah.
like
How many hours?
well, we probably got up at 1, and then, you know, probably 4 or 5 hours to the top, and then a couple hours back down, and then, so you're getting down kind of early in the day, but it's just, it was a shock to the system of how relentless it is. I mean, we could have come back and just slept another day, but we only really planned for an overnight. So now we're spending 2 nights. We don't want to spend another night.
Yeah.
But even then, we get back down, we shower, we go out to eat, and we're like,
Burritos.
yeah. And we're sitting there with our pitcher of beer, and we're like, okay, what's next?
All right, so,
So
okay.
that's kind of where,
That's your launching point with Shasta.
yeah, everything was just like, you know, what's the next goal? And then you just climb and hike and trail run or cycle. A lot of times we're just cycling.
Now, did you look at it and say, okay, so we did 14,000 feet. Did you look at the next one as being like a taller mountain or a more challenging mountain? What was the process?
Kind of early on, we were joking that we're doing all these like best ofs. Like Shasta is the highest point in California, and then we did Whitney, which is there's some technical routes on it, but again, like the normal route is you might see a little bit of snow and ice at the top, but it's just a hike. But that's the tallest in the continental U.S. in the 48,
Oh, okay.
the lower 48. So we did the highest in the U.S. And then the next year we did Rainier.
Okay.
Mount Rainier was another step up, and that's the tallest in Washington. And that felt like more of a serious thing because you're packing to get on an airplane, so it was like flying to Kilimanjaro or flying to the Himalayas.
Are you loading up gear?
Yeah, you can't just like throw a bunch of junk in the car and drive
what you
off
need.
and then stop off.
For burritos.
Yeah. So so Rainier was another step up in we did that guided with Rainier Mountaineering Incorporated.
Okay.
Um,
So there are those companies that, like for people that may be watching this saying, oh, I want to do this, there are companies expedition companies that you can research and then hook up with, and they'll take you on that expedition.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you're not on your
there's-
own.
Some mountains there's only a few that are allowed. They have a concession. So RMI is one. There's a few on Rainier that it's pretty limited, I think, because it's like a national park. And we had a guide. The lead guide on that trip was this guy named Dave Hahn. At one point, Dave was he would work for RMI, and then he would guide Everest, and he would guide Vincent, and he would just follow the seasons and follow different mountains.
Wow.
At one point, he had the most summits of any non-Sherpa.
Really?
Of anyone. I didn't, of course,
That was
everything
that
was
not
like
your
new
goal?
to us. Like it was the first time for everything.
Yeah.
And we're at the meetup shack at the bottom where they have a bunch of gear. And I'd rented a down jacket because that was recommended, and we're all grouped up there, and they go through your pack and they see what you're bringing.
So they'll give you advice like, you need this. You don't have one of these, or you don't need this.
You don't need that.
Take things
You don't
out.
need that.
Yeah.
You don't need that.
Overkill. Too much weight. Too
Yeah.
much weight.
Yeah. They look at you. They're like, you're not going to survive with this amount of stuff.
Yeah. It's
Um,
good that they do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty standard for guides to they want to know what they're getting into because they're going to be up on a mountain with these people.
Yeah, they don't want to have to carry you up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then this guy Dave Hahn walks in, and people are like,
Ooh.
ladies and gentlemen, kind of joking around. And,
Did you know who he was ahead of time?
no.
Yeah, so you were like, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And early on, somebody was saying, they were asking him, somebody said something about using oxygen on Rainier, and Dave said, nobody has ever climbed Mount Rainier without the use of oxygen.
Really?
He's like, you're just breathing it. You're using it.
Right, there you go.
It's there's nobody uses supplemental oxygen.
Right. Yeah, oxygen is around us. We're using it right now. Yeah.
So he's kind of a dry humor. Like you just kind of watch this guy and you're like, okay, he's been around. He knows all the bad jokes and but after that trip. We came down and we were staying at this local motel a little ways down from the mountain, and Dave came by because there's a gear shop nearby and it's a very small little place. And my friend Jim struck up a conversation with Dave, and there had been an expedition to try to find Mallory and Irvine in '99. So this is 1999 when we did Shasta.
Oh, okay, all right.
Now this is Rainier. This was 2001, I think. In '99, they had done this expedition. It was Dave Hahn, Conrad Anker, a few of the notable people in climbing, and they went to the north side to try to find, and they found Mallory's remains. And I wasn't as clued into this as my friend Jim was, and so he was, where Dave was using the camera, and I think National Geographic was involved, and they, he was like, I was filming when they
they found it.
Flipped over this little tag on his clothing and saw his name written on his.
See, as soon as you say remains,
yeah,
I'm out.
Yeah,
I'll watch it on TV.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because the story of Mallory and Irvine was they went up and they were spotted very high on the mountain, and then they were never seen again. And so Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay were the first to climb Everest and make it back.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole other debate in the mountaineering world. And did Mallory and Irvine make it?
Right.
And then they just, if they stood on top, they stood on top, but they didn't come back. You never know shit for sure. And they've never found the camera.
Wow.
But
So how long after that did you say, all right, let's go for the big one?
Well, so then we went back and did Whitney another time. And then we weren't really doing too much. I mean, me and my friends were all working all the time, and we're kind of weekend warriors. We're trying to be pro climbers, but
yeah, it's commitment.
You got to make money too.
Yeah.
So
and it's pricey. I mean, the bigger the mountain, the higher the price tag.
It's like you work during the week, so you can climb on the weekends, and so you're never doing it full time, so you're never quite at the elite level.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's different ways of people can manage that, but so this person we knew of was going to do a slideshow at REI one night. So his name was Rob Chang.
Shout out to Rob Chang.
So we go and we see he did a whole presentation on Ama de Blanc, which is another mountain. It's on the way to Everest. You pass by it, you have lots of views of it. It's not at the level of the 8,000 meter peaks. I think it's 21,000. But it's a very classic peak, like the lines and the shape of it, and it's a pretty, it's guided, and there's a well-worn path to the top of it, but it's fairly technical, and it's in the Himalayas, so it's
I feel like the whole Himalayas are technical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So So he did the slideshow, and we went out. We took him out for
Burritos?
not burrito. It was,
You
it was
didn't
like
climb.
a Fridays or something.
Right.
And so we're talking to this guy, and he's got like this North Face jacket with sponsor logos all over it, you know. And we're talking about climbing, just, you know, because we're like in the immersion phase. Like we're still kind of new at all this, and we're
The
like,
honeymoon phase.
yeah. And so we quickly, Rob and me and Jim, and it eventually became like 17 people
Wow.
organized this trip to the Himalayas to do a couple of 20,000 foot peaks, like 6,000 meter peaks. Peaks like that nowadays they call climbing peaks, and then the Everest and Lhotse, and those are expedition peaks.
Okay.
These lower peaks, they used to call them trekking peaks, but that kind of didn't do them justice. So they call those climbing peaks, and then there's expedition peaks that are bigger. So that was going to be like a 3-week trip. You're trekking in the Himalayas, so you're trekking to 10, 12, 14, 16.
3 weeks. 3 weeks of actually hiking and
3 weeks all together.
Yeah.
You know, there's a couple days on either end of the trip. So that was good because you see Kathmandu, you experience the food, the Sherpas, some of the language, and the trekking is, you know, if you go over there and just do a trek, it's an adventure because there's villages at like 14,000 feet, which is the
Really?
summit of Shasta and Rainier.
and there are village
And
people live
There's
at that
villages,
height.
there's, you know, stone and some
that's
metal roofs
crazy.
and stuff. And a lot of times, like they'll get you know, in the spring season, you know, a lot of times there's no snow anywhere. There's peaks all around you, and that's the thing. Like you're standing there at 14,000 feet outside of this tea house,
and you're still looking up.
and you're looking up, and you know, it's just it's
Well, it's still like
big.
another 5,000-6,000 feet above you.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Um,
You have pictures of that? You
yeah.
have pictures along the way?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, make sure you send it to me. I want to put some up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, we trek around. There were so many of it. There's like a lot of tea houses. They're kind of modeled. They're similar, I think, to things you'd see in Europe. They're kind of modeled after how they're set up, and there's seating around the perimeter, and there's a stove in the middle. There's so many of us that we didn't want to take over the tea house, so we camp outside. But then we'd hang out in the tea house, and but Rob, you know, he's like, we need to sleep outside. We need to be like roughing it, because then
You got to get used to the elements.
Yeah.
You said it before, climatize, right?
yeah, you're acclimatizing on the trek, but then just sleeping outside. The tea houses are not luxurious, but you have a roof over your head. You have a very simple bed with some foam on it, and it's easy. You can stand up, right? But we wanted to, you know, stay in tents along the way, and then we branch off and we did Island Peak and Lobouche East, which is not a household name, but people who've gone over there and trekked around and done some of these lower peaks, these are very common, you know, Island Peak, Lobouche.
It's like a warm up.
Yeah, it's the full deal of crampons, ice axe, you know, roping up here and there. So that was, you know, in terms of like being out in the elements and being far away from home and like, you know, strange money that you're using and you know, so that gave us an introduction to the Himalayas and the whole thing. And then the following year, that was 03, 04, we organized a trip to Denali. So that was myself, Jim, Rob, and then we had these 3 other people. So there's 6 of us. It was kind of a big.
And this is you've now made a commitment to mountain climbing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just going from, and it's not like I'm doing a big peak every month. It's more like there's kind of one big thing a year,
Yeah.
and then maybe
it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time involved.
Yeah.
Commitment.
Getting the vacation, the money.
Yeah.
On Denali, you're on your own. They drop you on the glacier. You fly in these little planes. They land on the glacier on skis.
Really?
And they drop you off, and the pilot does a quick U-turn, and he's like, "Help me get unstuck," and we push him.
Push me.
And he.
So you're really on your own.
Yeah, and for some reason we went early that season. We were like.
When things were really still cold and icy.
Yeah, and the pilot, when you land, he goes up and he does a U-turn. He's like under full power, and then he's like heading downhill. Oh, swings open the doors. He's throwing duffel bags out, because the weather can just close in a second.
Yeah.
So then he gives us some sage advice, and yells clear out the window, and fires up his plane. He takes off, and we're just watching him. It's a sight to see this thing skiing down the hill and then take off.
Kidding.
And he takes up, and then it gets really quiet, and you just feel this cool breeze like the back of your neck.
Wow,
and
this is
you're like,
really happening.
Yeah. So you're dragging sleds. It's like an Arctic expedition. You have a big pack and a big sled, tons and tons of gear, because you're trekking in for a long ways till you actually get to the mountain where you're actually climbing, and you're bringing gear up, and you usually will bury it and come back down and then go back up, make camp, then come back down.
Wow.
There's a whole different strategy of it helps you acclimatize and it helps your fitness.
Yeah.
But it's brutal, and it's all on your own, and because it takes you a while just to get to the actual mountain part of the mountain, it takes more days. So more days, you need more food. But then more food, you have more. That's more tonnage that you're carrying.
Yeah. How long was from start to finish? How long was the whole climb?
That first trip was, we were on the mountain for 19 days.
19 days.
Yeah, and we got stuck at 14,000 foot camp. That's a big, kind of like on Shasta at the 10,000 foot level. There's like a plateau, and everybody naturally just stops there. At 14,000 foot on Denali, that's this big basin where tons of people stay. And we got stormed in there for like 5 days. And
so there's nothing you could do. You're just hanging out.
Yeah, we were getting up in the middle of the night, shoveling the tent out. Wind is blowing like I've never seen. You take a shovel and you just throw it like this, and it just disappears. You never see it land.
Meanwhile, it's still blowing more snow on your tent.
Yeah. I mean, you're just trying to like keep it from getting unburied, and it's the middle of the night, and you're like putting on your layers and your socks and your boots, and it's just
19 days.
Yeah, and up until that point, as we're getting into this whole mountaineering thing, you're reading books and magazines. I've heard of people getting weathered in, like Arctic, the original Arctic explorers. And I just could never imagine being stuck for days and days, and but it happened. It was like 5 days.
And you had enough food for the 19 days. I mean,
yeah, and the weather would break here and there. You could cook. Sometimes we'd be cooking in our vestibule, so it's kind of sheltered. If it got really quiet, we'd go out and cook outside. But then, at the end of that, it would some of the guys had to get back, and
So they just went down. They didn't go up anymore. It's like, I got to work.
We all went down as a group.
Yeah, I got to work.
Yeah. And
But again, that's one of those things that you don't ever expect. Like I know talking to Adam, he never expected every single day to rain, like torrential rain nonstop.
Yeah.
For all those days, you just can't prepare for it.
Yeah.
So there's no way. Did you have those same concerns when you were going on Everest? I mean, is that similar type of climate?
Well, Denali's it's Arctic conditions.
Yeah.
It's very high. It's 63 latitude, so it's higher up on the globe. Everest is like
That's true.
26 or something,
Yeah.
23. Alaska, like hardcore Alaskans and hardcore Himalayan climbers, like if you're gonna do Everest, the Himalayan climbers say, go and do Denali first.
Okay.
And train.
So that's why you did
But
Denali.
the Alaskan people say, no, you got to go do Everest to get ready for Denali.
Oh, really? How do you feel about it now that you've done both? Like, what would you recommend for people that are watching right now? Don't do any of it. Stay at home. Stay at home. For you guys that don't know, Adam's sitting here just because he wants to hear, because he's going to be doing Everest at some point, so I wanted to hear the stories. Take care of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'd probably side with the Alaskans and do
Everest first.
do Denali first.
Yeah.
Because it's very hard training.
Yeah, I can imagine.
If you can, it's also like mentally, it's just a ton of work.
Yeah.
To do it. But it was, having been to the Himalayas and having all that experience, and just the next time you go, it's not all brand new to you.
Right.
And then doing Denali right after that. And the 6 of us came off Denali, and we came back to the Bay Area, and we brought way too much food, so we had
I had a ton of food left.
emptying all our food out in our garage, and it was like. So then me and Rob said, well, you know what? We still have a ton of food left. And the permits, you need a permit that was like, back then it was $125. Then it went to $250. Now it's like $500. But the permits are good for the whole year. There's no, So we booked some flights. I got a free flight from a friend, and go all the way back up there, go to Anchorage, go to Talkeetna, go to the ranger station to check in. And the guy's like, open our file, and he looks up and he's like, you guys are back?
Did you do this?
He's like, nobody comes back for Denali. Like, people are doing the 7 summits.
Yeah.
It's one of the 7 summits. So
Yeah.
You get this melting pot of like people from all over the world. who are
Yeah,
Denali.
sure.
But they go and do it once, and they suffer through it, and then they're
That's
out of
it.
there.
Never again.